We're Martha,
Steven,
and Mark.
and this is Code Comment, where the Nice Games Club game devs inspect the actual code, assets, and design of an indie game in development. In this episode, we fly through HoverboardVR, the prototype my brother Henry and I developed.
So let's start.
hello. Thanks for having me.
Yay!
You are the first person to ever appear on camera on Nice Games Club.
Yes.
Historic.
It's such an honor. Thank
So
you.
you're the face of Nice Games Club. Okay, so we started up the play mode in Unity here, but we need to do some calibration first, right?
Correct. So
We have to hoverboard full of eels button it.
yes. So the Vive and everything doesn't actually know where your dance pad is. So what we've had to do is you set the headset onto it, facing in the forward direction of the dance pad, and then we press a button and it will calibrate where your dance pad actually is.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, we were thinking of maybe putting one of the Vive trackers on the dance pad so that the Vive could track its position.
Mm-hmm.
But then we didn't get a hold of one in time for. And this worked just fine. So
why is the hoverboard full of eels? Is there a reason for that?
have you ever seen Monty Python and the Flying Circus? There's a sketch. Anyway,
Okay.
there's a guy. It's a guy with a bad translation book, and he goes, "Oh, my hoverboard is full of eels," and the shopkeeper's like, "What?"
Okay, cool.
Okay, so why don't you start walking us through how this works, and we can ask you a couple of questions about how the experience is and how you put it together.
Sure. So first off, to actually turn your hoverboard on, you have to press the grip button here on the side of the controller.
Cool.
We put that in because we want people to be able to still walk around in the room scale, but then have the hoverboard for the more like longer distance movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because that's what we thought when we first started making it, but when we had people start testing it out, no one ever gets off the dance pad. So
yeah. So if I press it, then I step on one of the dance pad buttons,
Mm-hmm.
I will start moving in that direction. And as you can see, both on the pad down there and on my the HUD on my hand, the button will turn green, and that will tell you which direction that you're moving in.
Mm-hmm. And that that UI that stays as you rotate, it sort of stays positioned, so it's always correct to the pad.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, that's neat. I imagine in a future expansion of this game, you could put like little trinkets and stuff you could pick up like under rocks or something, and then that would be an excuse to like get off the board for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or if it's like a more of a puzzle game, then you could have like zones that or like have EMPs or something in it.
Oh.
Turn it off, right? And you literally can't use it until you solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
So the content in here is just some sort of like prototype content. So how did you put it all together? What did you decide? What did you focus on as the two of you were making this? What mattered most and what didn't matter so much?
well, the terrain and everything is just I made it in the Unity's terrain editor thing.
Okay.
So it's very prototypey. I just like pulled up mountains and stuff, and added some trees, which caused problems at first because the trees I added from Unity's base terrain thing had a problem because they started moving with your head in VR, which caused people to get super sick. So then I downloaded some prefab trees from the Unity Asset Store, and that's what you see there. And I guess the biggest part that we started out with first is just getting you to be able to move with the dance pad.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really matter what was in, like the original had nothing to do.
Yeah.
And was just a flat plane. Like we didn't add anything else into it. So.
And I know that when I tested it, having those mountains that you sort of just graze by, going through the trees, that is interesting because the experience changes. Because in the motion in VR, you're really trying to come up with ways to make people who would normally be susceptible to motion sickness not be that way. And having the elements in the terrain was a really important part, seemed to me, to testing that, right?
Yeah, we wanted to have lots of diverse things to go by and also to go over. Originally, we didn't have a collider on your dance pad, so you just went through mountains and stuff. But then we added in some colliders, so you actually go with the terrain, and we wanted to see how people feel when they would go over a hill or something. Yeah. If it would still be okay feeling for them.
So what did you learn? What was the feedback you got?
The main thing that I was thinking when we actually first started making this was that when I play VR games, I get off balance very easily, and so I wanted to we wanted to force people into a more balanced position. So this position for me at least is a more balanced position, so I won't feel as off balance. But it seems that at least for taller people, the proportional distance between their feet just wasn't enough. So we might need to think about making a dance pad bigger, because it does seem to help me at least.
Yeah.
But people still didn't. We didn't get very many feedback that said that they were feeling VR sick. And I guess our theory behind that is that it's the same reason that you don't get car sick driving your own car, right? Because you're the one actually pressing the pedals to actually move.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time people reported feeling sick was when they went past through mountain passes or close to terrain, because then you could feel how fast you were going. And then we had people, because they didn't want to get off they never got off the dance pad. They would try to go close to things with the dance pad, so one thing that they noticed was that when they stopped and started, that it felt a little bit jarring for them. So they requested a small slowdown or speed up, which had to be. You spent a long time on that, Henry, to make it feel right. Because
I had a lot of time playing around with different speeds and how fast and slow you slow down. The slowdowns I had to make actually still pretty quick, because otherwise it became really hard to actually control. Because you take your foot off the button, and then you just keep flying for 10 miles.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
It needs to be almost immediate stop, but
right.
Still have to get the slow down effect, I guess.
Yeah.
So the whole idea came about because you wanted to have better balance when you're doing VR things?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yep. I would have thought something different. I would have been I want to make a hoverboard game. Yours has more logical and has better reasoning than just selfish reasoning. I think that's cool.
I mean,
I noticed that a lot with the other game that we made, where you move around with cables and grappling hooks, basically. Basically, whenever I was turning around, I was just almost falling over every time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you did add some game elements in here. There's these cubes that you go to collect. I know that when I demoed it, having you could just move around and go, oh yeah, this works fine. But having that goal made me definitely engage with it more. So how have you gotten feedback from people who you maybe you had to sort of push them on no, keep trying it. How much is prototype and how much do you actually have to trick a person into thinking it's really a game?
I mean, once you told people where their objective, they went and did it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's normally how people work.
Well, you're talking about the design is where you want to get on and off the hoverboard, but nobody did that because there doesn't seem to be a context in the game to encourage you to do that. Right. So you'd have to come up with something to do that. But then, are you now just designing a game? Right.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, the goal would be to eventually design a game where you actually have to do something.
Yeah.
This version is very the whole reason. Yeah. It's just a prototype without actual game elements. We found that it was hard to show it off to people without anything to do because they just would be oh, I'm done now.
Yeah. So when we actually started this, it was mostly just to try to conquer VR sickness with movement in VR. So that was our like main goal with making this. So it wasn't really to create like a real working game, I guess, at that time. Now that we've kind of proven it out a little bit more, we can. That's probably like the next step is integrating it into an actual game.
Cool. When people play the game, does the movement feel intuitive to people? Do they get it right away?
I guess one of the first people that tried it had played a lot of DDR, and she seemed to get a lot better. Like, she just like knew exactly where all the buttons were. Like,
wow.
Like in muscle memory.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So with other people, it's still pretty intuitive. They just actually the biggest thing that people had trouble with was finding this grip button.
Yeah.
To turn the thing on.
Because almost no game asks you to use that.
Yeah.
Because it's not fun to press.
Is there a reason you use the grip button over the other buttons? Just cause?
Just cause. I'd figure that the trigger button would be more used for other things in the game.
And we had something used, like the first prototype, we had it so that you had to press the trigger down in order to, and step in order to move. So that's why we originally put the start button on the grips, because we were using the trigger for something else. But we removed the trigger thing because people just held the trigger down.
Yes.
So it wasn't really doing anything for anyone.
And then for our first implementation of it, we had the start button on the Dance Pad as which is why there's that extra little triangle.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, that extra square there, that's the button you're talking about?
Yes, that was originally the turn your hoverboard on button.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, you have this janky DDR pad, if you don't mind me saying.
That's totally fine. I got it from some sketchy seller on Amazon for like $30.
Yeah. Hey. So how much of working on it has been like dealing with like the sort of limited hardware, and how much of it is more like conceptual, like like solving like design problems, like. Well,
I would say like a ton of percentage of our time is updating libraries that we've been using. We're using the VRTK and Steam VR and stuff like that, and for Unity, and updating that took a lot of our time each time we worked on it.
Yeah.
And the Dance Pad is seen as a regular controller by Unity and by the system. So we did have some problems when it started seeing the inputs as different inputs.
Yeah, so it's just like in Unity, it's just like a joystick. So you'd say get button down, joystick button 1,
okay,
or whatever. And so like for some reason we were seeing like at one point like the start button became the like Steam pause button, or whatever, like bring up Steam.
Oh sure.
Button, which was annoying. I made my script make it so that it actually looks for the name of this dance pad. So,
like by hardware ID or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. That makes sense. That's a way to solve the problem.
Yeah, it's actually when you're doing implementation for like recognizing lots of different types of controllers, sometimes you just have to go to that like hard-coded string that's part of the firmware and hope that the future versions of the device never change it. Of course, in this case, you know exactly what you're dealing with, so like better to not deal with that problem and just sort of have like a simple solution for it. That makes sense. So before we get you out of there and go behind the scenes of the project, I want to talk a little bit about that ball of masking tape you've got under your feet.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We didn't really have played DDR before, at least I haven't.
I haven't much either.
I didn't know exactly how far away the buttons were at any point. So what we did was we taped pipe cleaners to the dance pad, so that you could actually feel exactly where the buttons were, so you could have like a tactile way of knowing, because you can't see your feet, so you don't exactly know where you're stepping all the time. So we've done quite a few things to counteract that, actually, with the lights turning green, so that you know exactly which like buttons you're stepping on.
Yeah.
And then also the pipe cleaners to make it so that you can feel that you're like not actually on a button, or you are actually on a button.
Yeah. The one thing that surprised me when I played it is how much I was still looking at my feet to double check I was doing the right thing, even though I knew I was. And probably just comes with familiarity. Like if you built out a full game of this, it's just like DDR. Like eventually people get used to the input methods.
Just gotta learn it.
Yeah.
Most of the feedback we have gotten is from people who are just playing it.
Yeah.
And the only people who've played it for longer is the two of us.
Right.
But it seems like most people get the interface, and they were excited about it, and they would give us suggestions for how they would like to improve it. Like a lot of people said they wanted it to be a dance pad that you could do omnidirectionally, like not just the 9 directions. They wanted it so that, or 8 directions. They wanted it so that they could sweep their foot across, so they could like have more fine tune which way they were moving.
Sure.
Which isn't possible with this dance pad, but
What you
hey,
need
hardware people.
what you need is, I think it was the Sega Activator or something. It was this plastic hexagon that you laid on the floor, and it wasn't like a dance pad. It was just a ring, and then you stood in the middle of it, and it had like infrared lights that shot up to your ceiling, and then you waved your hand in front of it, and then it would block that. And Sega sold it. It was a Genesis attachment. They sold it as a way to play fighting games. Because then you could really kick and punch.
Oh, sure, because Virtua Fighter and stuff, right?
Genesis? No. Yeah, I don't know what games they... I mean, it didn't work with anything. Like,
Yeah.
but that might be something like that. But
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's get you out of the headset and let's take a look at the project.
Sounds good.
Okay, so show us a little bit of the guts of this thing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the land. Here's this land. That's what it's called.
As far as I can see, you have 2 scripts.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Let's go to...
The hoverboard one is definitely it has most of the guts in it.
Okay.
And box that...
Oh, wait.
The box script, all it does is change the
Turn the box on.
boxes
Yeah.
from red to green.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And those prefabs in that folder, that's just, they got moved around. Right?
Yeah.
Well, as you were setting this up, you kept saying like, "Oh, it's a mess in here." It's like, sorry about that, but like as a prototype, that's kind of what you want it to be.
Yeah.
You want it to be a little garbagey. You want it to be a little bit messy, so that you, one, don't take it too seriously, and then two, so that you can like focus on what you're focused on, which is the design of the thing,
Right.
and not And if you want to build it out, you can start over or like take the time you need to clean it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see we're using VS Code today.
Yes, we're not using monodevelop, thankfully.
Hey, I like monodevelop.
We know.
So these are just a bunch of variables that we don't really need to worry about, I guess. So down here in the move function.
Oh, okay. Those are all the get keys.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just checking
Here,
for every...
The first thing that we're going to talk about is this. So this goes through every single joystick and looks for the name USB gamepad.
Okay.
With a space, I see.
With the space at the end.
I'm familiar with that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. That took me like hours to find. It's like, oh, why would you put a space on the end of that?
Yeah, you said a debug statement. You're like, read off the name of the device, and it says, you're like, oh, great, I'll just type that in, and not realizing there's all this white space afterward. Yeah. I had one that was generic gamepad with 7 spaces after it.
Well,
Oh my God.
Why?
Yeah. All right, down here in the input get key, there's the usually you have to put in here like joystick button, whatever the number of the button is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just built that string out up here.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Right, that makes sense.
It finds the joystick number, so which just makes it then add joystick 1 or joystick 2, whatever number it ends up actually being. And then just concats it with button.
Okay.
Space button, and space.
Yeah.
And then down here, it will actually look for a joystick one, button 1,
That
or
is
button
a
0.
very complicated process.
Yes, it is.
I guess you had to do it.
Yeah. Well, the more you can
that's the way that
abstract
I
out
did it.
those specifics, the better it would be for you to add a different hardware device.
Yeah.
And then you'd feed that a different, you build the string somewhere else and then you use it there. So it sort of separates that out.
Yeah.
So this is the position of this hoverboard is the eels button, which moves the UI for the hoverboard right beneath the Vive headset, and also rotates it the correct way. That part took a really long time for us to figure out because it's a quaternion. Yay!
Yeah, those took, I still don't think I understand how they work.
They're very complicated math things.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I know.
Yeah, it's beyond the scope of this podcast or really my lifetime to give a crap about it. There's just there's lots of helper functions in the quaternion class. I'm just going to use those.
Thank goodness.
like Euler. Like that makes it a little easier.
Yes.
Yeah, they warn you like it's not going to be perfect, and I'm like, do not care.
So this is where if the on switch is on, so when you press the actual the button on the on the side button on the controller, you'll actually end up going to this move function, which down here is just you go in this preset direction when you're pressing this button, which we will have to clean up eventually, and because these east is like a hard coded value of a vector 3 of 0, 0, 1,
Right, yeah.
or whatever. So even though we have the thing that turns it, these are still hard coded. So you kind of have to turn it in the correct direction. So we'll have to figure out some mathy things on how to actually calculate the actual vectors that we need.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it sets the color of the both the HUD on your hand and also the one that's actually on the ground.
Okay.
To green. And then there's the exact same ones that are the exact same set of like seven of the 7 or 8 buttons that there are that will turn into blue and basically stop moving and so in each one of these we're also setting this variable called direction set, and down here if it is set, then it will slowly speed you up at 0.1 speed per frame. And then and as soon as you take your foot off, then it will decrease your speed by 0.5 per frame. And then if it's less than 0.5, it will just set it to 0. I did run into
some negative
problems, some negative numbers.
And so this is the way you were sort of. It's a very small section of code, but you've spent a lot of time getting that just right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Playing around with these two specific numbers. A lot. Yep. And actually the max speed too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Set way up to the
What is the max speed?
20, I think.
That seems fast.
And what does that end up being, like Unity units per?
Well, it's
something?
20 per frame, right?
Yeah, max speed is 10.
Oh, 10. Okay, so it's 10 per frame. So 10 units per frame.
Well, that seems ridiculous. But how in VR it's really important when those numbers to like translate them to not just Unity units, but like usually it's like 1 meter per unit, but not always. Sometimes you don't design for that.
Right.
Sometimes you design that 1 unit equals half a foot or something or whatever. But so like I can't translate that into how fast that feels.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But did you have like a idea for how fast you wanted it to go, or at least an initial design, or do you just pick some numbers and just play with it until it felt right?
I picked some numbers.
Yeah.
It felt right. Yeah.
It's not a
It is
bad
ultimately the way we always do it, right?
Right, yeah, that's not a bad way to go about it at all.
Yeah.
So it's 20 per second then, not per frame, or 10 per second.
Oh, okay.
If it's multiplied by delta time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So that's like Olympian sprinting speed, which is video game speed, right?
Yeah. Well, you have 2 moves. function?
Yes. So the
Move 2, the sequel.
Move 2 was actually our first. I think this is without the speed ups and slowdowns.
Oh, I see. Because it doesn't have any references.
Oh, it's just vestigial at this point.
Yeah, it was just me playing around with other things.
Sure.
So,
Pay no attention to Move 2.
What's good about like prototype code is like, when you're writing like production code, you want to make sure you delete things you don't need anymore instead of just commenting everything out for later. Or whatever. But from prototype code, you want to leave that stuff around,
right?
Because you're going to go back to it. You want to see the history of it without having to go back to an earlier Git commit or something like that.
Yeah.
It can be hard to unlearn that sort of. I know that I will am I ready to delete this? Like, okay, I am, and then I'll go through periods where I'm just really aggressive about it. Like, I should have saved that part.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Mm-hmm.
I was also playing around with people wanting to be stepping on two directions at the same time.
Yeah.
And be going like in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think actually Move 2 was. me
Oh,
trying
yeah,
that
yeah.
Because what I was doing was the direction is.
Okay.
I'm just adding them together.
Right.
Sure.
And so the reason that this wasn't working was your speed. Once you took your feet off of both of the buttons.
Yeah.
You're multiplying a vector of 0, 0, 0 by 10,
Mm-hmm.
and so you would just immediately stop. So that got rid of of that actual of what move does.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
So
yeah.
of the speeds up and slowdowns.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
So to combine those two features, you'd really need to rethink the whole way it's built, right?
yeah.
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 Makes sense. Well, it makes sense why you've kept both versions just sitting there.
Yeah.
So who did most of the script here then? Or is it?
Mostly Henry.
It's mostly me.
Oh.
I did a bunch of the UI stuff. So I built the Dance Pad UI, and not the one on your hand.
Color coded.
And we worked like pair programmed a bunch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Describe pair programming.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Oh, well, it's where one person's typing, but the other one is contributing with what they know. Like, right. We should do input dot whatever.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're like backseat coding.
So it's like
Yeah.
real-time collaboration, but only one person's doing the labor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask about like how your workflow guys. Did you guys just schedule times to meet up, or was it just as you went? Like, I know you guys gave that talk in Mini WebCon, which gave you a little bit of fire under your feet, right?
Yes. Probably the only reason why it's this far, honestly. But yeah, we schedule times to get together, and then we go to one of our houses and set up the dance pad and have one of us in the headset and the other one changing stuff around.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, for
Yeah.
actually for VR, that makes a lot of sense. Like efficiencies abound. Like, nice. So you talked a little bit about how you wanted to maybe bring it forward into a real game concept, and now that you've taken all the learnings from all the tests you've been doing and throwing people in it, like, what are the ideas? What do you want to take this concept and build with it?
As far as games go, I unclear. I haven't decided yet.
We're still working on that part.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to make a sort of kind of like Hoverboard Junkers, except it would be more puzzle-y, where you have to go around and solve environmental puzzles. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kinds of sort of Myst style VR games that are sort of these like worlds you live in.
Yes,
And-
like Myst.
And
Yeah.
and just thinking about like a lot of them use teleportation because they're meant to be available. Like they don't try to push the boundaries of what VR can, like the tolerance people have for VR, because they're meant to be like they're not action games. But having something like this can really improve the immersion, or like getting on and off the hoverboard. If you can get people to understand that mechanic, like that is a great application for something like this.
Well, if anyone has any cool game ideas, feel free to tweet them at us.
I'm just picturing Back to the Future VR.
Ooh.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question. So you when you're moving on do you use physics at all in the game, or are you just like moving translate?
Translate.
It's just translate.
It's just translate. Yep.
Okay, so there's no issues with like physics, because I know you can you move with the terrain, right?
Yep.
So are you using is like your friction at 0 or something? Did you change that at all?
I think it's at 0, but
Okay.
we could look at if we go back to Unity, and you click the dance pad. No, it's on the controller. Yeah. So we just have a sphere collider, and a rigid
sure.
body.
That's smart. That
Yeah,
makes
and then
And
we have
the
to freeze
freeze.
all the rotations.
Oh, sure.
When I first
it's-
implemented this, I forgot to freeze rotation and then just started just rolling.
Oh boy, that'll make you dizzy right quick.
I had to, that was a immediate headset off the face moment.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us on to talk about it, guys.
Well, I know that you guys have been talking about this project for a while because you had that talk coming up and you're sort of finding time to work on it. And Martha, we've talked about it on the show a few times.
Yeah.
In anticipation for getting to see it here. So I'm glad that our listeners and viewers got to take a look at it too.
There's some notes on my website, marthamcgary.com.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put that in the notes too. Awesome. Well, Henry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Martha, thanks as always.
Yay! Thanks for watching. Code Comment is just one part of our game dev program, Nice Games Club, which, if you're nice, you can subscribe to on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club. And if you want to know more about the show, you're a nice host or a nice guest, you can do that at nicegames.club.
So, till we start again, remember to
Play nice.
And make nice.